We have a rare celestial planetary event that's approaching here coming up, and it involves a couple of our major planets and an alignment that also goes with the age that we're in and so on. For Saturn and Jupiter getting closer together, so the king planet and the ring planet seem to be making a conjunction here, and they're doing so at a strange time of year also, for it coincides before 2020 ends this year, and what it's going to be is a conjunction on the equinox on the winter solstice, December 21st. And that number and date is extremely important. We've talked about in quite a few videos where where the sun reaches its lowest point in the sky and then seems to sit still for 3 days and then start rising again. And it's also doing this in the constellation of Aquarius. Now, Aquarius is the zodiacal sign that we are coming into at this exact time. It's not really showing it well, and that's a bad depiction of the moon. But it's going to be 0.1 degree. They're going to be 0.1 degrees apart. It's at their closest point that they're going to be. And so, to the naked eye, depending on your vision, you might see that they're together as one brighter star. The only difference there'll be is about 1/5 the width of a full moon in diameter apart. So actually, you should be able to tell easily from the naked eye that they're right there on top of each other, effectively making a handshake. Now, this handshake that hasn't happened in over 800 years to the level it's happening now. For it happened about 400 years ago, and this oddly was just right after telescopes were even invented. We use this word conjunction whenever planets and other things line up in the sky, and as I said, there was alignment earlier this year that was between Mars and these two planets with the moon in the same area, and astrologers went crazy about this type of thing. And you can imagine that people in elder times that we talked about would have really been making a lot out of this. In fact, anybody into old Babylonian astronomy and things like that would, and well, we still are today, hooked up through the ages, and then the planets and the planetary gods that we talked about. And so this is Saturn and Jupiter conjunction, and it hasn't happened since 1623, which is a strange time. There's a spot coming around to us. For it's only 14 years after Galileo made the world's first telescope. Well, that's not necessarily so, and we've talked about scrying devices and so on going back, and the ideals that could have gone along with this, and actually observations that people had made that shows you there was a whole lot of astronomy going on before then. So this is something almost like a Star of Bethlehem event, for we've talked about that before in other videos. Last year a bit, but the year before I made a couple of videos about it, and the Three Kings, which has to do with Orion's belt, and how that all worked out in a conjunction that's something like this. And it was a key point. And this is, again, a symbolic thing. I mean, if we're paying attention to it, it would again be a very much a key point for It happens in the zodiacal sign of Aquarius that we're coming into, and many people say, well, the cusp of Aquarius started in the 1950s, early 1950s, and you can see that society went, change it. It was something along that line, but there are also these astronomers and all these guys that say this is going to be the event to where it steps into the next zodiacal age. There are other people say that legally we aren't there for another, 42 years or something like that, but we've got our foot in the door, if you will. So this is at the winter solstice, if you will, and an alignment of two of our king planets, which extremely have a connection to gods and religion, are a king and a holy or haloed object of ancient times, and this handshake that goes on. It's an extremely rare event, but even rarer is to put the multiplicator onto it, that it's happening in your zodiacal age. For whenever it happened at the Star of Bethlehem, and wasn't exactly this here, it happened in Leo, and of course that's a king type of thing, in the retrograde that happened at that point. So right now, Saturn is just the east of Jupiter in the sky's dome here up above us, and you can see it near the moon. Jupiter is brighter than any star. It's pretty distinct and you can see it. And then Saturn has a golden type color. But on December 21st, they'll be as if they're a single point of light, almost standing upon each other, or like a bowling ball, bowling pin type of shape. People have made a lot of connections off of this, and they try to say, when conjunctions like this happen, our planets are so big they still have some force upon us, but nowhere near as powerful as our moon even, which causes our tides. But in effect, it can help to cause things to happen like earthquakes and all this type of stuff. Well, if you're going to pinpoint just a day, that'd have to be a weak amount. Whenever they're getting close and they're on that side of our planet, as they pull on it, that would have caused a whole lot of things that isn't necessarily evident. I know in 2020 it'd be very easy to deviate somebody into believing all kinds of things off this, and I believe that's pretty much by design too. Or if you believed in Babylonian astronomy, and that of course goes back way, way much earlier, as we've talked about, and you still did, as some people still do definitely, they would see this as a sign and probably would try to make it come out as being as such. So it's something you might want to watch. It's pretty neat though. We won't be able to see such a conjunction like this again until March 15th or the 16th of the year 2080, and then that will be around a spring equinox, if you will. So it's a pretty rare event, something that flips around. The planets are going around us, and it takes 20 years for one's orbit and 12, and we talked about that and how that works out. But then they have a retrograde situation and all of that, and whenever it works out in alignment like that, boom. So it becomes the house of the sun, two alignments that hook up here in the house that we're in on a solstice. So from Druids to ancient Sumerians to any ancient astrologers, people would be freaking out. I used to watch an astrology show that used to come on when I was a kid, when we had limited channels before all of this. And there was this guy, Jack Horkheimer, and he came on. He was so excited about astronomy, if anybody's ever seen it. and overly excited, if you will, he would probably pop like popcorn knowing an event like this was coming and things. So something to look out for and maybe watch for. And let me know what you think down in the comments about it. I could go off for a while, but I'm going to let this just go until it becomes a closer event and talk to it about it again through the holidays. Peace.